ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयम् नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. So yesterday we saw the verse 362 where the analogy was given about the gold ore being smelted in fire and how the impurities are removed and the gold shines in its natural splendor. In the same way, sattva, rajas, tamas, these impurities of the mind are removed by contemplation. Dhyanena santyajya sameti tattvam. And a person comes to realize the self. So in that context, we also saw about how the primary aspect of sattva, rajas and tamas is removed by this dhyana. The secondary aspect goes by the other means, but the primary aspect goes by dhyana. Now continuing ahead. Nirantarabhyasavashat taditham pakvam mano brahmani liyate yada tada samadhi savikalpa varjitaha swatodvayananda rasanubhavakaha. So he says here, Nirantara Abhyasa Vashat, continuous practice. Nirantara Abhyas, constant practice, Vashat. In this way, Pakvam Mano Brahmani Liyate Yada. When the mind becomes purified, prepared, it merges in the self. Brahmani Liyate Yada, when this happens, Tada Samadhi Savikalpa Varjitaha. Then from Savikalpa to Nirvikalpa, the Samadhi will proceed. Swato Advayananda Rasanubhavakaha, leading a person directly to the bliss of absolute truth, Brahman. So now Nirantar Abhyasa Vashat, by continuous practice of maintaining that steady thought, I am Brahman, I am pure consciousness, that will lead to Savikalpa Samadhi. Nididhyasan will lead to Savikalpa Samadhi. And that Savikalpa Samadhi, as one practices more and more and more, the mind becomes purified. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they all start reducing the primary aspects, which is ignorance, attachment, and intellectual knowledge. They will start going because of the intuitive experience. And then comes the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Pakvam Mano, this mind is called as the prepared mind. This mind which is purified, that mind effortlessly dissolves in Brahman. So Brahman here is the Nirvikalpa Samadhi Avastha. It is not just a blank mind or a quiet mind or a mind where there are no agitations and thoughts. No, it is this Brahmani liyate yada tada samadhi. So then the samadhi becomes Nirvikalpa. So the Nirvikalpa Samadhi is equated to Brahman here. And in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, one mind has merged. But then again it comes out because of the Vasana pressure, like how in deep sleep the mind becomes unmanifest, and then Vasana pressure will again make the mind manifest back in the dream and in the waking. In that same way, again the mind comes out. So that practice of Nirvikalpa Samadhi also has to happen again and again. So Tada Samadhi. Now one example given here for the merging, how it is said, mind merges in Brahman, Mano Brahmani liyate yada. So one example given for that is the hailstones merging in the ocean. That example will come ahead also. The hailstones are made from the water only that evaporates, and then it falls hard, maybe small, big, whatever size, hard it will be, and then it falls. And once it falls into the ocean, slowly it will melt and then it just merges fully into the ocean. There is no separate identity it will have. It completely merges, becomes one. Same way this mind. Body identification makes it hard and strong as though, and it's a individuality which thinks of itself as separate from the world, from God, from the absolute truth. But when this samadhi abhyas happens and it has become purified, that attachment to the BMI becomes much lesser, then it merges. So tada samadhi savikalpa varjitaha. What is the difference between savikalpa samadhi and nirvikalpa samadhi? In savikalpa samadhi, there is the triputi. Triputi means the experiencer, experienced, and the experiencing. The experiencer is absorbed in one thought. All the other thoughts are not there. Fully absorbed in just one thought, has lost the identity also, but that object of the thought of that object of contemplation that remains. For example, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa having darshan of Mother Kali and Savikalpa Samadhi, he goes into, he will forget himself, only Kali will remain. But the fact that Kali remains, meaning there is a thinker, but not in the manifest form the way in which right now it is in the waking state. So there is a thinker who is absorbed in the thought, and there is only that, there is nothing else. Vikalpa means thought, Savikalpa means with thought. The Samadhi with thought is Savikalpa Samadhi. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is Samadhi without thought and the thinker, both. This Triputi is gone. Then what is there? Only Atma Tattva is there. Who knows it? Atma only knows itself. Atma doesn't need a mind to know. Mind needs Atma to know. Like the example given in Atma Bodh is the sun illumines by itself. That doesn't need a lamp. If there are clouds which are covering the sun, when the clouds move away, the sun shines. Now we don't need to take a lamp and then try to see what is there behind the clouds. Once the clouds move away, what is there? We can't see. Take a lamp. No, sun is self-illumined. So mind does not need to know. Mind merges. That's the difference here. Now, every other knowledge we gain when the mind remains intact, the individuality remains intact, and then it comes to know something. In this, that mind has to dissolve, then only the intuitive knowledge arises. To whom it arises, that's the question only is wrong actually, because it's not an object of knowledge. So who knows this computer, who knows this book, who knows this? So we say I know. Who is that I? So it will be the senses, it will be the mind, it will be the Mr. So and so. So now that always is connected to the objective knowledge, or it is connected to something that is perceptible through the BMI. So it can be connected to feelings. Who experiences love? Who experiences success? Who experiences, let us say, any form of even philosophy? Who is the person who is studying this Vivek Chudamani? So there will be one entity. But this intuitive experience, that entity dissolves. That's why it says Mano Brahmani Liyate. If mind doesn't become dissolved in that, Brahman cannot be experienced. The obstacle to realization is only this false identification. That entity who is a knower, Mr. So and so, is thinking of itself as the independent knower, whereas it is deriving all power from pure consciousness. So when this false notion goes, what remains is Brahman, consciousness itself. Swato Advayananda Rasanubhavaka. One will experience this by oneself. Swato Advayananda Rasanubhavaka. This is the limitation of language. You say Swato Advayananda Rasanubhavaka. That one will experience the non-dual bliss of Brahman. So one will say again, who is the experiencer? That's the limitation of language. That's not validating that there is an experiencer in that. Experiencer dissolves. That which was illuminating the experiencer so far, that remains. Like when the movie ends, the screen remains. The screen doesn't depend on the projection. Projection depends on the screen. Screen will remain whether projection is there or not there. Same way, Brahman remains whether the thought is there, not there, thinker is there, not there. That doesn't make any difference to Brahman. And that Brahman is what the entity is. That's our true nature. And so, intellectually, that's why how much ever we try to think about this, it doesn't work. That who is the experiencer? Gurudev used to say Narayana alone experiences Narayana. And you are that Narayana. Full stop. So, Advayananda Rasanubhavaka. So, Savikalpa Samadhi, the thinker remains but absorbed in one thought. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, no thinker, no thought, only Brahman. That's why Nirvikalpa Samadhi is equated to Brahman here. It is not said it is a state of mind. Mind merges in it. Manoliyate Brahmani. This Manolaya continuously when one keeps doing, then Manonasha happens. Manonasha means complete destruction of the mind. The psychological entity of which separates itself, that entity dissolves. That's why the example of the hailstone. That hailstone falling into the ocean completely dissolves. So Manolaya is when the mind becomes dissolved for some time, but again it comes back because of asana pressure. But that continuous abhyas of Manolaya will finally lead to Manonasha. Manonasha is this. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, one will experience the state of Brahman. Abide in that and no, then one doesn't come back from that state. So that is why again and again one has to do this abhyas and get into that state. What is the result of this samadhi? See the next shloka. Samadhinane na samasta vasana granther vinashokhila karmanashaha antarbahis sarvata eva sarvada swarupa vispurtirayatnata syat. Samadhina anena samasta vasana granthehe vinashaha. By this samadhi, meaning continuous practice of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, this person destroys all vasana, granthi. Now, vasana granthi means what? Same as Hridaya granthi. Avidya, kama, karma. Those. What we know as vasana creates the desire. Desires make us think. When we think, then we act. Action gives result. Result further increases vasana. Increase, decrease. So this vasana to vasana cycle. And the word granthi means a knot which is going to bind. And so all these vasana knots destroyed. And akhila karma nasha. Vasana being the root, being the cause here. Ignorance causes the incompleteness, that causes vasana. then the rest of the cycle starts. So vasana pressure removed, desire removed, action removed. Please remember, all this is selfish action, not that no action the person does. No, all selfish action removed. So restlessness gone, desire not there, so body is also quieter. Vasana pressure is reduced, so desire is not gurgling in the intellect. So the whole personality has become quiet. Vasana pressure has been reduced by Karma Yoga actually earlier. But Vasana pressure is eliminated with this. Vinasha happens with this. There only reduction happens. Karma Yoga reduces Vasana pressure, the existing Vasanas get exhausted, new Vasana not created, or Sattvic Vasana gets created, which will lead to more and more satsang and less and less restlessness. Then one is able to practice Upasana, then Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasana. This whole process itself will purify the Vasanas, reduce the quantity, etc. Then Samadhi will destroy. Because the direct experience of the self, there's nothing like that. That destroys body identification like anything. So this vasana, desire, thought, action, result, vasana, this cycle gets purified and reduced by karma yoga and upasana. Then through Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, the feeling of incompleteness and false identification with the body, they will get reduced. And ignorance destroyed completely in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So Granthir Vinasho. So in this way, avidya, kama and karma, all three get reduced, get destroyed. Now when the vasana pressure is removed, vasana itself is destroyed, then akhila karma nasha. Now akhila karma nasha, so we all know that there are three types of karmas. Our full bank of karma is called sanchit karma. The total bank of karma which we have accumulated. Sanchit means accumulated. Chinoti means to accumulate. So Sanchit. So Sanchit is the total bank of karma which we have accumulated when? In human lives, not in any other life. Till first human birth, nature will push us to become evolved. No karma in that, because in any other yoni, karma cannot be created. It can only be exhausted. And the cause of that earlier lives is no karma of the jiva. It is the push of the nature. It will become. Till first human life, it will be by the push of nature. Then human life, there is identity, self-awareness, then there is choice. From then onwards, the karma starts building. And so many karmas, how one has lived in millions of lives as animals and in the lower realm. Even after coming to human life, one continues that process, so one accumulates a lot of karmas. So one doesn't know all this. It's a slow process of evolution and refinement. So this Sanchit karma is a total bank of karma which one has. From that, when some portion is ready to give result, that is called Prarabdha karma. Suppose 1 lakh is a Sanchit bank. Some 10,000 are ready to give result. Now that 10,000 to experience, I need a body. That body, that individual gets according to that karma in the appropriate realm, in the appropriate yoni. Let us say we got in human life. It can go in any yoni, but now in human we have got that. So from Sanchit, total bank of karma, some one portion, some 10,000 karmas, to exhaust that, Prarabdha karma is there. Now, when I am exhausting those, if I act with ego and egocentric desires, while exhausting the 10,000, I may build another 20,000. If I act like a seeker, dedicating the work to the higher purpose, action to the higher purpose, then I don't create new vasanas. then the Vasana pressure will reduce. But there is still Sanchit Karma bank. And actually, technically speaking, Vasana pressure reduces. It is not that when we act with dedication, no new Vasana is created. As long as the ego is there, Vasana will be created. The impact of that Vasana will be very less in our mind if we do it with dedication. The quality of the Vasana created is sattvic rather than being rajasic and tamasic. Till ahankar is there, Vasana will get created. Technically speaking, that is what it is. But we say no new Vasana getting created because we say no new rajasic, tamasic Vasana getting added. It is sattvic Vasana coming into the causal body that will lead that person to satsang, and through that person will get liberated. So in that sense, in a general way, it is said no new Vasana is created. Now sattvic Vasana gets created. So what happens through samadhi abhyas now? Through samadhi abhyas, when this knowledge is there that I am that pure consciousness, I am not the karta, I am not the bhokta, I am not the jiva, then that fire of knowledge, that intuitive knowledge, please remember, this is not that intellectual knowledge which one just gets by hearing or reading. The intuitive knowledge that I am Brahman, when one actually transcends the attachment to the individuality, his manolaya happens. Mind absorbed in that and it loses its identity. That experience will destroy Dehatma Bhav on one hand, and it will destroy lots of Sanchit Karma also. Why? Because I am not the Karta at all. And when actually the person gets established in Savikalpa Samadhi, then Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then what happens? Full Sanchit bank gets burned. In the Gita, Bhagavan says, Jnanagni Dagdha Karmani Bhasmasat Kurute Arjuna. It's like a matchstick. One matchstick is enough. You light it and you put it in a huge haystack. That entire hay will get burnt just by that one flame of that one matchstick. Fully burnt. Same way, this flame of intuitive knowledge will completely burn this entire haystack of Sanchit Karma. See, that is the source of all karma, no? Sanchit Karma, that becomes prarabdha, and then while exhausting prarabdha, we add more, that is agami karma. But the point here is that if Sanchit Karma only gets burnt away fully, then there is no more cause left for rebirth. Prarabdha one will have to exhaust because that cannot be stopped. That is already started. It's like an arrow shot. And then what happens while exhausting that prarabdha karma? If the doer is gone, there is no bhokta, but karma is still happening. While exhausting prarabdha, the jivan mukta is acting. But there is no entity. So some karmas which have to give result, but the bhokta is not here. So who will get the result? So the scriptures say that the punya karma will go to the devotees, papa karma will go to the critics. So this Jivan Mukta is freed. No Sanchit karma, that is fully destroyed. In the fire of realization that Sanchit karma gone. Why Sanchit karma is gone? Because that karta is gone. Like a criminal who is dead, whatever punishment he has been given has to be written off. It's over now. Or like the dreamer woke up. Now whatever karma he has in the dream is all finished. The dreamer has woken up now, gone to another state of consciousness. So now this is not an escape, or this is not to say that one can act in any way and then one day realization will happen. In that anyway Sanchit will get burnt away. No, that purification of the mind etc. will not happen if I act immorally and do anything anyhow anytime. No. This is to understand how this person becomes free and how samadhi abhyas is the only method, and abidance in the self is the only method by which the whole Sanchit karma is destroyed. No amount of karma will end karma. Karma can only add to karma. Jnana only can end karma. That's why in the Gita again, 4th chapter, Bhagavan says, Sarvam karma khilam partha jnane parisamapyate. All karmas end only in knowledge. Karma is actually a means for us to purify the mind to gain the Atmajnana. When I gain the Atmajnana, karta gone. Karta bhokta bhav gone. Whatever karmas that were done, all will be destroyed. In fire of realization alone. And for that, karma yoga, etc., should be done before. So it is using karma to rise above karma. It through knowledge. That's why it is said na karmana in that mantra. When we hold Purna Kumbha for any sannyasi, the mantra of Kaivalya Upanishad or the Sannyas Suktam says, na karmana, na prajaya, na dhanena, tyage naike amrtatva manashuhu. Not by karma, because many people think by karma one will become fulfilled. And by karma one will go to heaven, by karma one will attain great siddhis, by karma. In the world, yes, whatever finite is there to achieve, karma is required for it. But the infinite is not realized by any amount of karma because the karta is the problem. Because infinite is not absent. Infinite is not a product of karma. Infinite is that because of which karma is happening through the karana, which is the equipment. Identifying with this karana, the equipment, the infinite is appearing as a finite karta. So the karta is not different from the infinite reality. Only obstacle is the ignorance that I am infinite reality and the identification with this karana, this equipment. That has to go. I am not this at all. When that karta bhav goes, whatever karma this person has done, all destroyed. So in the world, karma may be very important to achieve great things. But in spiritual life, the quality of karma must change to nishkama karma. Then slowly that karma also reduces. Upasana increases more and more. Then nididhyasana increases more and more, in which there is no gross karma happening outside. Subtle thought, subtle karma is happening through steady contemplation. Then that also goes. One abides in the self. Mano liyate brahmani. And hence he says here that akhila karma nasha. This is called akhila karma nasha. When we take birth and we exhaust certain prarabdha karma, then the body dies. So that is only partial karma nasha. It is not akhila. Akhila means all karma is destroyed. So sanchit karma destroyed by fire of realization. Prarabdha karma, the body will go through it, it will get destroyed. The Jivan Mukta is not bothered. Agami karma doesn't get created for the Jivan Mukta because Karta is not there. But it will go to whom? It will go to devotees or critics. So the person is free. That's what the Mundaka Upanishad also says that. Vidyate hridaya granthihi chidyante sarva samshayaha shiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. When that supreme is realized, then all these three will happen. Hridaya granthi will get pierced, destroyed. Vidyate hridaya granthi. Avidya kama karma gone. Chidyante sarva samshaya. All doubts disappear. Otherwise, one will keep having doubts. Intellectual information is not enough for Brahman. One will still have doubt whether Brahman exists or not, or what is the nature, how can I be Brahman, how can this whole world be Brahman. Everyone can be Brahman, but my mother-in-law cannot be Brahman. Some doubt will persist. All doubts gone. Sarva samshayaha shiyante. And chasya karmani. Shiyante chasya karmani. Chidyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani. All karmas also destroyed. That is what this is, Akhila Karma Nasha. So through this samadhi and the experience of the self, this Akhila Karma Nasha happens. Then Antar Bahi Sarvata Eva Sarvada. Within and without, everywhere at all times, Sarvata Eva Sarvada. Swarupa Visfurti Rayatnatasya. Natural, spontaneous abidance in one's own true self will happen. Swarupa Visfurti. One will shine in one's own true self. And here is realization complete. This is called Brahmatmana Samsthiti. Please remember, we are in that portion. That how will one find abidance in Brahman? Through continuous practice of Samadhi. And finally, the mind has dissolved itself, ignorance is destroyed. So avidya gone, so karma and karma also gone. So the need for more and more and more steady contemplation and then practice of Samadhi is there. Now comes a very beautiful verse to emphasize this need. Hierarchy is given. This can be applied in all fields of life also, not just in Vedanta. If there are some few verses which one should memorize in Vivek Chudamani, the next verse is one of them. A very important verse. Shrute Shatagunam Vidyat Mananam Mananadapi Nididhya Samlaksha Gunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam. Shrutehe Shatagunam Vidyat Mananam. If listening is 1 unit, 100 times more powerful is reflection. 100 times more superior than reflection is nididhyasana, contemplation. Actually, it is 1,000 times. Sorry, lakshagunam. Shrute shatagunam vidyat mananam. Mananadapi nididhyasam lakshagunam. Listening is 1, 100 units is mananam, 1,000 units is reflection. So 1,000 and 100, 1 lakh. So 1,000 times more. Laksha Gunam. So Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasana. Then compared to Nididhyasana, how much greater is this Nirvikalpa Samadhi? He says infinite, there is no count, because that's the only direct means to realization. So listening, reflection, contemplation, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Listening is 1 unit, 100 times more is reflection. 1 lakh times more is contemplation. Infinite is realization through Samadhi. So what should be the focus of the seeker? Today it is happening in the other way. Lots of time going in listening. Sometimes so much listening that one becomes a professional listener actually. Any talk in the town is there on Vedanta, anybody is a speaker, one is sitting there. See, initially there is nothing wrong, one may listen, one may explore different types of speakers, and there's nothing, Shravanam is always good only, but Shravanam should not become an escape, or Shravanam should not just be passive. Shravanam has to be active, where I listen not because I want information alone, because I really want transformation. That genuinely I want to transform from this Jiva Bhav to Brahman. So then listening is meant for that. But this listening will be impactful only if it is followed by proper reflection. If it is not followed by proper reflection, then impact is very less. So if I read for 1 hour, I have to reflect so much more. What is said here? Shrutehe Shatagunam Vidyat. 100 times. So if I read for 1 hour, I have to reflect for 100 hours. Swamiji, that way we won't be able to listen only much, because 1 hour of listening. Now Vivek Chudamani already we finished 103 classes. Today is 104th class. Now 104 hours of listening. Multiply that by 100 more hours. 10,400 hours of reflection I have to do. Bapre. It's not, don't go by just number. The idea is how much more am I reflecting compared to listening. It is to give us the hierarchy of doing the sadhana for that sadhana to be effective. Because this knowledge especially is a subjective knowledge. It doesn't depend on quantity of time. It's not that by going on listening I will realize the truth. No, reflection is very important. That's why in that in the Kathopanishad also it is said, no? Na ayam atma pravachanena labhyah na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. This atma is not realized by going on talking about it. If that talking becomes a means of reflection, then that is a different matter. But just talking about atma will not help, and even just talking for reflection will not help if it is not complemented or supplemented with nididhyasan, contemplation. So he says, na medhaya, not by memory, na bahuna shritena, not by listening a lot. Meditation is the key. So to tell us that this shloka is there, now don't start counting in terms of hours only. Your 1 hour of listening means 100 hours of reflection, and then 1 lakh times is the meditation to be done. So where will I find time? If 10,400 hours of reflection I have to do, now the 10,400 into 1,000, that is what a large number. How I will meditate so much, contemplate so much. So don't go by just the number. The importance is of the hierarchy, that if I am listening more than my listening, I may listen to very less, but I sit and reflect more and more and more and more. See, knowledge comes by reflection. Is how beautiful is this principle, that clarity comes by reflection, and this assimilation of this clarity will happen through contemplation. And when this assimilation happens through steady contemplation, the destruction of all the false tendencies will happen through this state of samadhi, meditation. Now, where do we even train our children or ourselves also to do reflection? 20 subjects we will study, 30 classes we may go to. Reflection is how much on that? So the retention, assimilation, absorption, all that depends only on reflection. There's one nice shloka which says, Anabhyase visham vidya, ajirne bhojanam visham. Anabhyase visham vidya. If the abhyas of that vidya is not done, and abhyasa can be done only after manan and nididhyasana. Just by listening, it will not come into my daily life. I have to reflect, I have to understand its importance, and then try to change my behavior to assimilate and live in my life. That is abhyas. He says, Anabhyase visham vidya. That knowledge is poisonous if it is not assimilated and lived. Anabhyase visham vidya. Ajirne bhojanam visham. Just like the food which is not digested will become poison, toxic for the body. Now, when some people listen to this, they will say, oh, that's why now I should stop listening. I have heard enough. Now it's time for assimilation. I will just go on assimilating. See, if that capability is there, nothing like it. Do it. Like We always give an example of so many great masters who, like Nisargadatta Maharaj example I always give, that his guru came to him, knocking his doors, stayed with him for a few days. They had satsang, and when the guru went, he said, "You are not the body. Refuse to believe you are the body." And he went, and the guru never met him again after that. Now Nisargadatta Maharaj is reflecting on that, and he started living like that, saying, "My guru said I am not the body, so I am not the body." Internally, all his identification snapped. And he started living as that I am pure consciousness, I am not the body at all. Realize the truth. So for him, he was ready that listening was so intense that it brought about the transformation, and the faith that he had, it brought about the transformation, and he started living like that. Then listening purpose is served. Then you stop listening, no problem. But if I don't have that type of Shraddha, my mind still has lack of clarity, then what should I do? People stop listening also, then they don't reflect also, then one goes down. That should not happen. This hierarchy is meant for us to rise higher. If I am leaving the lower step, I should have a firm step on the higher step, then only I can leave the lower step. Otherwise, lower step also gone, higher step also gone, one falls down. So that should not happen. So if I'm listening for 1 hour, at least reflect for 1 hour, 2 hours. Get that much of clarity. We should get that clarity. Sit and think on what did we, on any concept that we had heard, or Shravanam, what we did, start reflecting. Otherwise, we are in today's world, the information overload is so much that we read, and we get tired reading on. Because so much is available. And one feels that the more I read, the more equipped I am. Information one may be equipped with, but clarity is a different power that comes through proper reflection. So Shrute Shatagunam Vidyat Mananam. 100 times more than reflection or listening is reflecting, is to sit and think and clear all the doubts. If you remember earlier, we have done what is Mananam meant for. Mananam is meant for clarity, removing of all doubts, and it is done using logic and experiential proof. Specifically, I am talking about Vedanta. In other subjects also one has to do that. Clear all the doubts. Why certain thing is said like this, why not like this. So clear all the doubts. Then at least there is intellectual conviction. The result of listening is determining of the essence. The result of mananam, reflection, is intellectual conviction. I must be intellectually convinced that I am Brahman. No, Swamiji, I am intellectually convinced, but can't experience. Many times that's a intellectual conviction is not true conviction also. It is just an appearance of conviction. It's not, it's an illusion of clarity, not real clarity. Illusion of conviction, not the real conviction. Apparent conviction it is. How to know whether it is real or not? That knowledge which transforms to conviction will also start applying in my daily life. I will start living like that. See, if I have intellectual information about smoking, knowledge I have about smoking and it kills and it is harmful and all that, I'm still not leaving smoking. I'm still not leaving smoking. Then that knowledge is unassimilated and that conviction is not real. I may give talks on that also. I may tell people what is the impact of this smoking, what it will do to the lungs and what it will happen, the whole process I can explain. But I am still not intellectually convinced, because if I was convinced, I would not touch it. That is called clarity. Power of conviction is it will transform the life. So intellectual conviction must result through proper reflection. How to reflect? Use logic, use experiential proof, read the lives of great masters, think for oneself. So many statements we just say, parroting everybody, but there is no substance and pith in that at all. I don't believe in God, I believe in nature. Now reflect on that statement. What does that statement mean? Like that, one has to take some concepts and reflect. I am spiritual, not religious. Okay, what does that statement mean? From where did your spirituality come? Yes, in the name of religion, people are dividing each other and the religion is become exploitative. But that happens to everything. After some time, you will say, I am not spiritual, because in spirituality also there will become exploitation. That's a human problem. Everything the human being uses to exploit. Now, religion has become very commercial. After that, spirituality also will become commercial. Then you will say philosophy, all people who are talking philosophy, they are charging money, they are doing this, they are doing that. Now philosophy also become commercial. Now what will you be? Neither religious nor spiritual. Then either you will invent some other word or something else will happen. That I've got disillusioned, so I don't practice religion, no practice spirituality, I am good as I am. Forget all this. I'm not justifying any of this. I'm just saying we have to reflect on the thought. It cannot just be repetition of whatever people are saying. That I'm religious, not spiritual. I'm spiritual, not religious. That's one step one has taken to disassociate with all the aspects which one disagrees with religion. And that freedom one has, one can do. There is no problem. But the clarity has to be there. That spiritual knowledge, if I say philosophy, that philosophy came from where? That philosophy belongs to that religion only. And religion is equal to philosophy plus ritual. So if I don't want to do ritual, I just want to read philosophy, then philosophy will appear dry, because then one will say, this is not practical, this is not transforming my life, it's only intellectual information. That's because you left away the ritual. Ritual done without philosophy is blind. Philosophy without ritual is lame. One cannot reach the destination with only one. One will require both philosophy and ritual. Subjective science is philosophy. The practical application science is ritual. So both these are necessary. And if I want to evolve to realize divinity, both these are necessary. Now both these are part of religion. At least I'm talking about Vedanta, it is 100% fact, it is that only. Hindu culture it belongs to. No, if I say I'm not religious, I'm only spiritual, so I will take only the knowledge, but I will not call myself a Hindu. I am not a Hindu at all. Where did this knowledge come from? It's the end portion of the Veda. What is the Veda? Veda is Hindu culture. So how will I deny it? I may be in a denial mode in the head, but the fact is from there only I took. How people reject, no? They'll say, I'm not your son anymore. In anger, they'll go and say, I'm not your son anymore. But fact is, you are born to them only. You are their son. Same way it is. Religion is religion. Human being may exploit and do anything out of it. That is the human stupidity and limitation that one has to come out of and bring back it religion in its true glory and spirit. This human being does with every science. Use that science to exploit. Anything, politics, economics, art, literature, dance, music, in any science you will see, in any field you will see, human beings' greed and insecurity will turn it into exploitation. So if I reflect then clearly that all these people are saying, I don't believe in God, I believe in nature. What is that nature then? The inert laws you are believing in, or sentient entity who created these laws. So one should reflect. I am this body, I am not this body, I am Brahman. Now reflect how I am not this body. I have been taught I am this body full time. Happiness is not in the world outside, it is within as my true self. Now, why it is not outside? One should reflect. And this reflection happens, as we have discussed earlier, in two stages. Actually, three stages it should happen. Yeah, it happens in three. One reflects by oneself using logic, you know, by oneself independently, one can reflect. Whether one is walking or one is sitting quietly somewhere and reflect on any of these concepts. Shraddha, what is faith? Now sit and reflect. What is exactly is faith? How is the difference? What is the difference between blind uh, belief, superstition, and faith? Can faith be blind? Because people say blind faith. Can faith be blind? So if one starts inquiring, can faith and questioning go together? Now I'm reflecting on the topic of faith. Like that, one can take any topic and start reflecting. Depending on what one wants to achieve the clarity about, one should take a topic and reflect. So one is individual reflection. Second is group reflection. Sitting together in a like-minded group or even a group which is diverse. It need not be like-minded. In fact, the better it is if it is diverse. There are different types of people. Some are believers, some are non-believers, all types of people. In such a group, when I sit and reflect, then reflection becomes more deeper. And then the third is while experiencing in the world, I should reflect. When I'm eating that whatever donut, I should reflect. Is there real happiness in this? What am I investing? What am I getting? Then that reflection, when done in these three stages, will transform into intellectual conviction, which will transform my life. Proper intellectual conviction will transform because thought process will change. Full, when thought process changes here, conviction happens here, then the action will change. If your action is not changing, that means thought process is not clear here. There is some confusion in that. So compared to listening, much more time one should spend in reflection. Now, especially this applies in Vedanta, that compared to reflection, one must spend more time in nididhyasan because the viparit bhavana that I am the jiva, I am this body, will still be there even after intellectual conviction. Why? Because intellectually, even if clarity is there, it is verbal knowledge. Intuitively, I still feel I am finite only. That intuitive knowledge that I am finite, I am this body is not verbal knowledge. So this verbal knowledge and intuitive knowledge, there is no match. Verbal knowledge is got recently through thought, through reflection, through listening. This intuitive knowledge that I am the body, I am the jiva is there from millions of lives. Where is the match to this? There is no match. Is intellectual information and intuitive false identification, where there is no match at all. Until the nididhyasan doesn't happen, where intuitively I come to realize I am Brahman, there is always a mismatch. The feeling will be of I am a jiva, knowledge will say I am Brahman. So knowledge, intellectual knowledge may be there, but the bhavana is still for body. So there will be contradiction in behavior then. Though at thought level I am convinced I am Brahman, feeling level it doesn't change. So I will still feel as a jiva, I will still act as a jiva, I will still run behind pleasures, I will still be attached to people. I will still insist on situations. So then one says, Arey, Vedanta is not transforming my life. If I have got proper intellectual conviction, then actually speaking, if proper intellectual conviction is there, automatically one will start doing nididhyasan, because a part of that intellectual conviction is this verbal knowledge cannot make me realize the truth. So I have to meditate. The importance of this contemplation will become evident to that person. Like simple, no, it is no amount of reading books on swimming is going to substitute go and fall into the water, jump into the water and swim. One may read enough books on that and be convinced that swimming is this and swimming has to be done like this and breathing pattern has to be like this and hand movement like this, leg movement like this, and some 20 types of strokes one can tell, butterfly and breaststroke and backstroke and whatever. But what is that going to do? That intellectual information will remain there only. One has to put that book aside and jump into the water and then see. Then one will know whether one is able to even practice those strokes or not. So if I'm really convinced and that makes me want to jump into water, then that knowledge is proper. Same way this mananam will lead to nididhyasana. And at some point in time that mananam will become lesser. One will want to more and more meditate. That is the success of mananam. That it will lead to intellectual conviction and it will urge me to sit and meditate. Like simple thing, right now we are reading so much about samadhi. More and more one reads about the samadhi avastha and what it will do and how the person sticks. If that bhav comes that I want to experience that samadhi. How to experience samadhi? Nididhyasana is the means. Sit quietly, do nididhyasana. Or do japa. Either of these will lead to samadhi. Then that urge when it comes, then my study about samadhi, my reflection on samadhi becomes very fruitful. This applies in so many things now. If you read about a place, now Kailash Mansarovar, you read about it and then you listen to some people telling you, oh, I went last year, it was divine, it was wonderful, this happened, that happened. Now one listens to all that, then what will happen? When you listen to it, then you think, can I go there? How it will be? How difficult is it? Can I prepare well? All that reflection one does. Then when one does that reflection, then the bhav will come, I must go there. Then that reflection, listening and reflection has become fruitful when it creates that urge, I want to go there. And one will go there. Then one experiences that divinity. So that experience of the divinity is samadhi. Going there, that's the process of nididhyasana. Reflecting that should I go, what will it be, how it is, that is a mananam. And then when you are listening or reading somewhere about it, or somebody is telling you about it, that is Shravanam. So in life it happens, in many things it happens. It is not that only in Vedanta, it is. Same thing happens in other aspects. And all these are complementing each other also. Sometimes one starts doing nididhyasana, then one feels that knowledge is not enough. Then again one goes back to mananam, continuing nididhyasana, but refine the mananam. Fine tune the knowledge more properly, clear more doubts. And if required, go back to more listening and reflection, more shravanam also. So it's not that one is left and then only the next. It can go simultaneously also, but the proportion has to be clear to us. So listening 100 times more is reflection, 100 times, 1000 times more. So Laksha Gunam is Nididhyasana, where I sit quietly and say, I am not this body, I am that Brahman. This abhyas again and again and again, if I do, Anantam Nirvikalpakam, one will get into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And how much Nirvikalpa Samadhi one should do? See, the Sanchit Karma bundle is huge. And the Jiva Bhav is very, very strong. That's why Anantam Nirvikalpakam it is said. The impact of Nirvikalpa Samadhi is infinite times more. And the practice also has to happen for a long time. That's why it was said in the earlier verse, Nirantar Abhyasta. Evam Nirantar Abhyasa. Vashad. Nirantar, continuous. See, people Ramakrishna Paramhamsa and Tapovan Maharaj and all these great masters, they used to be in samadhi for hours together, sometimes days together. Many days the mind is in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Then only abidance happens. Because Jiva Bhav, as I said, for millions of lives I've carried this Jiva Bhav. How it will go in just a few hours? Jiva Bhav is so strong that I have to destroy it through proper steady contemplation and samadhi. There also savikalpa, then nirvikalpa. That nirvikalpa samadhi abhyas has to be there. You know, Gurudev has written some very nice things about this nirvikalpa samadhi and how long one should be in that state and how one should not disturb the mind in that state. Even with this thought that this is all my Guru's grace and God's blessings, nothing, no thought disturbance there. Just be in that state. And he says, if you can keep the mind in that kind of a state for 6 months, you will enter realization. In one book called Unto Him, these are his notes. Some of those I will take a picture and I will put it on the group. Read that. What he has written is so powerful. Then one understands that, array, there is a long way to go for us. And sometimes the journey has not started only. Or it has started, but it is proceeding at a very slow pace as though. These verses are to increase the intensity. That where have I to reach? Where am I standing? Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, Savikalpa Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Abhyas of all these continuously. So what level of single pointed focus is required on this? It is meant for that. And to urge us to proceed higher and higher in our sadhana. So more we continue tomorrow. Any questions for today?
Namaste, Swamiji. Most of the transactions that I do are done by my emotional personality. Very rarely does my intellectual personality back my emotional personality. So when you say manonasha, is this the same thing as vasana kshaya?
Same. Manonasha is the effect of Vasanakshaya, you know. If Vasanakshaya doesn't happen, Manonasha cannot happen. Because Vasana will manifest as desire in the intellect, thoughts and emotions in the mind. So that's why we said earlier that purification of these Vasanas have to happen. So Karma Yoga, etc. should be done. That will purify the Vasana. Selfishness will transform to selflessness. Then the Vasana pressure becomes lesser. Then only Manolaya can happen in Samadhi. So Vasana pressure, Vasana Nasha is the cause, Manolaya will be the effect. And Vasana Nasha can happen through Karma Yoga, through Upasana, as well as through Nididhyasana and Samadhi, all. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.